Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com and presented by MyBookie.ag, where you can use the promo code ROSTER to get a 100% deposit bonus up to $1,000 over at MyBookie.ag, again with promo code ROSTER. Byron, week 4 on waivers. It's just this has been a weird year so far. Hurting in one of my most important leagues, doing well in another one of my most important leagues, and it seems to all kind of hinge on what the hell has happened with all these injuries. It's been an important couple weeks on waivers. What are you thinking about this week?
Well, I don't think this week is going to be as maybe quite as pricey, overall at the top end. I think there's going to be a couple of guys that folks are going to chase down pretty hard, Alex, but think we'd seen like the last couple of weeks, people really ready to come out swinging. And of course, we've saved our budget and spent prudently over the first few weeks so that we can be in position to really capitalize on these next crop of players. They're going to be very important coming up on waivers the next few weeks. So fortunately for us, prices are down a little bit this week. I think there's still a lot of great opportunity. I mean, it's a huge waiver wire cheat sheet. I mean, the wide receiver list is basically endless for those of you guys in super competitive formats. I mean, we got all kinds of deep, super competitive plays there at the bottom if you're in a desperation situation. And then I think the tight end situation continues to look pretty nice streaming, Alex. It's something we kind of anticipated before the season, but I'll tell you, man, the quarterback situation is pretty darn thin this week.
Yeah. I mean, it's just everybody should just drop Carson Wentz at this point, right?
Yeah, I had trouble understanding why he was coveted so much during drafts this year. That never made a lot of sense to me. I think it's just that air, there's just kind of seems to be this notion
is he just not good? What's wrong with him? Is it the offensive? I was just watching yesterday. I can't believe how bad the Eagles just look as a team, and I know their offensive line keeps getting hurt and all this stuff, and they don't have any of their wide receivers available to them, and now Deshaun Jackson's hurt, and now Goddard's hurt, and now it's like I've been trying like crazy, man, all day long, and I hope nobody in our league listens to this. In one of our leagues at least, where I've been throwing out trade offers all day for Miles Sanders, and where I feel like I'm just giving up a ton, just because when I look at we got the new matchup tool up today over at RosterWatch.com, and it's always interesting when we get to week 4, because it's the first week of the matchup tool where every bit of the data just comes from the first 3 weeks. We still have some of our old evaluations and our old scouting grades that go into this stuff that's just kind of evergreen that we just update every year. But as far as the actual metrics from, that we use, nothing is from the last 6 weeks of last year anymore. It's all from this year. And so the matchup tool changes a lot. So if you're a pro member, go look. There's some matchups that are surprising. But as I look at the Eagles the next few weeks, man, it's a tough schedule for those guys. I'm sure you'll probably talk about it in the trade cast. I've had these Eagles on the mind, just wondering what the hell's going wrong with them. And it has me worried about Miles Sanders, too, because it feels like this team's going to go as Carson Wentz goes, and Carson Wentz is not going well right now.
Well, I like the 8 targets for Miles Sanders this week, Alex. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised given the situation at Miles Sanders' kind of bottom line. What did he go? He went over 100 yards, I think, this week. Did he?
He didn't go over 100. No, he did not get the 100-yard bonus on DraftKings. That's for goddamn sure. There was a minute there where he looked like he was going to get it there on the last drive. I think he ended up with like 95 rushing yards, and decent enough game. He didn't get there though. He didn't score. And then I had it pulled up earlier, but just his schedule the next few weeks. I think he's got Baltimore, and he's got Pittsburgh, and he's got, I don't know. It's I'll pull it up because I brought all this. I got us off of this and brought it all up. So let's see. The Eagles, they're at San Francisco, then they get Pittsburgh, then they get Baltimore, and then they'll get the Giants and Dallas before their bye. So that's good. But this next 3 weeks doesn't look like it's going to be any walk in the park for Miles Sanders. And for a team that's got to win right now, like I do in that league, I need to try and try and get rid of some dead weight like him, and fucking Joe Mixon. Like, how bad is he?
Yeah, I mean, it's bad, man. I've got a Joe Mixon, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Devontae Parker team, and it's like, dude, I think I have a great team. I think my bench has been awesome. I haven't really been hurt by injuries. It's one of the few circumstances of just massive underperformance by like all the guys you drafted kind of early. I mean, I think Mixon's the main one that's been underperforming. The other guys have been hurt, so it's a tough situation. And Mixon's another guy we'll talk about on the trade cast. He's got hopefully a get right spot this week. But I mean, just like Miles Sanders, Mixon's another guy that you're going to want to look to ship off your team. I mean, I'm out on Joe Mixon basically the rest of the season after this week. He's got only a couple top 10 matchups left the rest of the entire season, and they don't happen until week 13 and 16. Like, I think your season's over if you hold on to Joe Mixon any longer. I wish I'd sold him after week 1 and seen how bad the offensive line was. But
he has Jacksonville this coming week.
That's what I'm saying. This is the get right spot, and then like you got to get him up, got to get the value up, and get him the hell out after this week, man.
Right.
I mean,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. But I mean, you said it about Miles Sanders. I think there's a handful of guys like that. And by the way, I'm seeing 22, maybe it was 107 total yards for Miles Sanders. It must not have been rushing out.
Let me look and see. I don't want, he had 18 rushes for 90. I know he did not get the 3-point bonus because it would have gotten me over the cash game and a lot more in my 50-50s.
Yeah, well, the 8 target, I would say, like, so for the difference between him and a guy like Joe Mixon, like, I'm just irate. It's unforgivable how few targets Joe Mixon is getting in Cincinnati. He's the exact kind of guy that everybody expected was going to get targets this year, especially when Joe Burrow's throwing the ball 60 times a game. And like, I mean, the usage rate shows he's even in there, but he's not getting the targets. At least like Miles Sanders, Aaron Jones, these guys, you can hang your hat on the facts. You're looking down, seeing 7-8 targets in the box score, man. Gio
Bernard's like a team captain and all this shit. They just like him. They still think he's one of the elite weapons in the National Football League. They like to deploy him in very specific situations, and it screws Mixon. So, I mean,
I just think Burrow's throwing to his wide receivers, man. Drew Sample was 89% snap count last week. That's astronomical for a tight end, and he even ran routes, but he didn't get any target. He got one target. Like, I think Burrow is
I saw that, man. I watched the morning routes. I went and looked at PFF. I don't have it pulled up right. He ran like 36 routes.
Yeah,
it's like, on the week. So, I mean, yeah, we'll have all that information.
Throwing to the wide receivers. I mean, I think we should begin to realize that, and I think that's a perfect dovetail probably to the fact that this is rookie wide receiver week on the week 4 waiver wire cheat sheet.
Yeah, so let's just talk about the waiver wire cheat sheet, and we'll just get started with it. Right at the very top, it looks like right at the very top, and rightly so. Justin Jefferson. Of course, you can find all this at RosterWatch.com with Byron's recommended free agent budget bids and sort of the exact order and the exact tiers that he has these guys in. But I don't think we got to put up a spoiler alert to tell everybody that Justin Jefferson, Minnesota Vikings, probably this week's guy if you're looking to spend up at the wide receiver position and fortify that position for yourself. He is clearly cucked Olabisi Johnson. 78% of snaps last week. I'm not even sure, did Olabisi even – I don't even know if he played or what. They got Chad Beebe more involved, working him out of the slot. He had 34% of snaps, but 9 targets, 7 receptions for 175 and a touchdown last week for Justin Jefferson. Looking not anything like just tell me if you thought it was weird that Justin Jefferson looked so good lining up outside and doing these things that we didn't really expect from him given his prospect profile coming out of LSU. This is a former 2-star high school player. People didn't know why. He didn't seem to have the athleticism to really thrive at a place like LSU. People thought it was because of his route running, all this stuff like that. Then he goes just absolutely berserk. In this game that we talked about, dude, on the Sunday morning show, we said, how does this game have a 49.5 point total, and why are people just ignoring it in DFS? I wish I would have stuck with my own principles there and just said, look, I'm going to stack this game in tournaments. Even if I would have stacked it, I would have gotten on Justin Jefferson. It would have been Thielen, I'm sure, but tough, man. It's tough. We have some have some people in chat. Looks like we got our guy Ronald Martinez, Hugo Juarez, Minion Hunter, Robert Volpe. Thank you guys for chiming in here. We'll answer some of these questions here in a second. Also, just a quick reminder, man, if you guys are on YouTube, if you could like and subscribe and give a thumbs up. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please, we're putting in a lot of work to get you guys some really solid quality content all week. Not that Trashman's podcast is that quality, but this is quality. The Tradecast, I think, is the most valuable season-long podcast there is in fantasy. Byron will have that tomorrow, and then I do the DFS walkthrough, which is a huge pain in my ass every Saturday, and we do it all for these ratings and reviews from you guys. So if you could please rate and review the podcast and Apple Podcasts. At a certain point, if we don't see the ratings and reviews going up, the people who are the decision makers behind the scenes in our company will have us put this content behind the paywall. Just so you know. So please, Apple Podcasts, just scroll down, hit the 5 stars. We would really appreciate it, and it'll help keep this stuff free. All right. Anyway, Justin Jefferson, your thoughts, Byron?
The thing with Justin Jefferson was it wasn't that he couldn't play on the outside. We just didn't see it, right? So it was like all a projection with him. And so I guess it made it surprising less than maybe strange because we all knew he was a really good freaking prospect. So, and, I had a lot of Keenan Allen to him, who we see has obviously got versatility to move around. Another guy had a big day in there yesterday. So I think he just looks silky smooth, man. It's beautiful to see that he has that kind of explosive ability. And to me, it looks like he's going to slide right in for Stephon Diggs in that offense.
That's crazy to think about. I mean, if he's sliding right in for Stephon Diggs and they continue to do they're so bad on defense, Minnesota.
Well, doesn't he look like a similar player to Diggs?
No, I don't think he's
not running around out there breaking those big plays. It's like, man, that kind of looks like Diggs running around out there.
Well, you forget Justin Jefferson does have the sub 4.5 straight line speed. Right? Was he 4.4? Was he 4.49 or was he 4.43?
Yeah, he ran well in Indy. I remember enough that it made a difference.
Look, man, people are asking about trades and stuff like this, man. Alja, thank you. He says, love you guys. I know this podcast is about the waiver wire. What do I do with Melvin Gordon and Joe Mixon? We talked a little bit about Joe Mixon earlier, but what you need to listen to is the trade cast with Byron tomorrow. He will talk about both those guys. With Mixon, I would wait until after. Just listen back. I've already talked about it, but where I own Mixon, I'm waiting till after next week when he plays Jacksonville, and I'm going to try and sell high then. All right. Underneath Justin Jefferson here, we generally don't start at wide receiver, but there's not that many good running back targets this week. But I'll have to say, Byron, I did call it last week. I said the guy who's farther down this list, who's going to be at the very top, come when we do this podcast next time, is going to be Myles Gaskin. And sure enough, 1 week later, here we are. Myles Gaskin, as far as the running backs, looks like he's at the top. Do you think that this can continue? I tweeted about this the other day. I'm just like, why did the Miami Dolphins trade for Matt Breida? Why did they go get Jordan Howard? Why did they? Is it just that they found out that they found out that they're just like, hey, Myles Gaskin's been great and we just love him and we're going to play him. Myles Gaskin's dominating the snap share and the touches.
Well, he had the opportunity to be even higher on the sheet than he is, Alex. And the reason he's not any higher is because there still are concerns that this thing over time could deteriorate. Now, I'll tell you, to me, it's pretty clear the team's intention is to give him this opportunity. The problem is he doesn't look good. He looks good in spurts, but his yards per carry is pathetic. I think he's still at major risk of that thing devolving to a timeshare at some point. It makes too much sense. And then the other issue I had with Myles Gaskin is on paper, it's supposedly a decent matchup, I think, this week at home against Seattle, who basically shut down Zeke this last week. But beyond that, Gaskin's got I think he's got three tricky matchups in the next 4 weeks. So Gaskin is a guy that deserves the acclaim and the attention right now. And I think just the fact that people are desperate in their leagues now, hell, we're starting to see the very beginnings of possible COVID swindles in our leagues. Now we'll see if that manifests or not, but like we've been, in the preseason, everybody's worried we're going to really be going to the waiver wire and deep to our benches because not just injuries that we've seen that have been nuts, but eventually there's going to be some possible wacky business with COVID and teams getting schedules and games switched around. So who the hell knows?
Has there been? I've been picking up my kids and stuff since that hit this morning. There haven't been new news about that, right? There hasn't been any positives from Minnesota, has there? There hasn't been any new news.
No, but from Tennessee, and it's just like players are testing positive. There's personnel in Tennessee that tested positive, and so I think they're going to try. They're saying they can probably play without any practice this week, but we'll see if this is isolated, but this is what everybody expected 60 or 90 days ago, that this kind of stuff was going to come.
Did you see Goodell's memo? Did you see the memorandum he sent to teams? It's just like, all right, well, here it is. This was expected. So it was what happened. We're going into the protocol for this. We're going, we knew there were going to be cases. It's been crazy. It's gone this long where,
what I'm saying
AJ Terrell was our first one that we saw.
Which mean it may not be as big of an issue as everybody thought, but I think, it's something to watch out for. There's already been more than enough injuries to make up for any kind of like benefit that's been available from the COVID angle of things to begin the season. Now, I'm just saying, I think all of that still puts upward pressure on a guy like Gaskin that I do have real concerns about overpaying for on the waiver wire for any type of like long-term solution for my team. But that said, by default, he belongs at the top of the heap this week, Alex.
So there's people asking about Carlos Hyde, whether or not we think he's a good pickup. He's right here on the sheet, sort of right under in that very next tier. You guys who are in the chat also, if you all have players who you're wondering whether or not you should drop them, put them in here. Just say, should I drop so-and-so or whatever, whether or not you're okay to drop these guys. And Byron and I'll go over that at the very end about, who we would drop, who we would pick up, et cetera, et cetera. So what about Carlos Hyde, Byron? I think it would be stupid to play Chris Carson this week because I believe that Chris Carson isn't Seattle's bye in week 5. Don't they have an early bye, Seattle? I'll pull it up. Let me see. So running back strength of schedule sheet. And as usual, very, very so they have a week 6 bye. So, but boy, man, if you could get Miami and Minnesota out of Carlos, what if they just sat Chris Carson out through the bye? Or maybe do they not? Because they're not tied to him long term. He's in a contract year. He just hired Murphy McGuire over at Octagon Sports to be his new agent and get him signed to either get him extended there in Seattle or get him a new deal. Unless Seattle's really thinking about extending him, I don't know. Like they might not care about taking care of him. What do you think? How long do you think we're going to have Carlos Hyde here?
Well, I'm not sure we're going to know before you have to put your waiver claims in and their process tonight exactly what Chris Carson's status over the next few weeks will be. The indications are there, say he may play this week. To me, regardless, Carlos Hyde is going to be a flex play this week, whether Carson plays or not. Obviously, if Carson doesn't go, he's going to become much more than a flex play. So, right. The other thing is at this point, if you're a Carson owner that doesn't own Hyde, it's paramount that you own him. So Carson deserves some real speculation this week, Alex. And I think
Hyde does.
I mean, Hyde
right.
Deserves a real speculation this week. And I think it's going to depend on your situation. Are you a Carson owner? Are you looking for a 1 week play? I mean, do you think that he's going to be available as the starter for a couple of weeks? I think that'll all factor into what the winning bid is going to be in your league this week on Hyde, Alex. But yeah, I think he's a flex play regardless of what happens with Chris Carson this week. So in that situation, like there's a lot of players that need to look at picking him up and getting him in their lineups this week.
Rex Burke had saved my ass this weekend in one league.
That's just crazy.
Saved my ass.
This was like the Rex Burkhead, Jeff Wilson week for you, but all that paid off.
You know what's crazy is I dropped Jeff.
You're starting to turn into a trash man.
It was for my second flex spot in one league. I dropped Jeff Wilson at the very end to pick up Rex Burkhead.
Sexy,
and I
Rexy.
was just like, I wish I could have started both those guys. I'm glad to see
what a
you
miracle,
didn't.
Man.
I'm glad to see that you didn't go. I mean, that was such a thin play. That's not going to happen again. James White. Here's my deal. People are going to act
touchdown.
People are acting like James. I mean, James White. I mean, it's just terrible what happened to him. But like, you just put the timing of it together, right? He was on his way to that game whenever he got the news about his parents being in the car wreck, and I believe very, very sadly that his father succumbed to his injuries. Our thoughts and prayers, of course, with them. But I just remember, like, you really think James White's gonna miss another week? He's missed 2 games. I remember when my dad died, and like everyone's different, but when my dad died, God rest his soul, I remember I took like a week off from work, and that was basically like, you know, he passes away and the family comes together and mourns, and you know, and then like the funeral comes along and you have the services and stuff like that. And kind of after the services are over and stuff, like you kind of want to get back to work. You kind of want to say like, man, I can't keep living like I got to get my mind off this a little bit. I mean, I miss him and I don't, you know, but like, I got to get back to work. You know, I don't think James White's just going to keep on missing. You know, I mean, what is Rex Burkhead worth if James White is back? I don't understand. Are people thinking James White's going to be out for an extended period of time? I mean, maybe he is. I don't know. Everybody mourns differently, but like, I don't get it. It's like I'm just seeing James White talked about, or Rex Burkhead talked about, is, you know, a priority pickup this week. I'm glad that you don't have him listed in that same section.
Yeah, I think he's just a wild card flex play. That's all he was last week. I mean, forget about the results. He was still just
in a good match.
He was
in a good matchup.
That's fine, but you hit a one-outer getting 3 touchdowns on a Rex Burkhead when he's like through. Still, you got J.J. Taylor getting touches. Michelle got some touches. So it's a wild card flex play, and you got Damien Harris potentially coming back into the mix now too. Given how crappy those running backs are, I'd rather speculate on maybe talented young guy at some point getting a chance.
Yes, I'm glad that you put Damien Harris over Burkhead. Yeah, man. Like I'm putting in my waiver claims where Damien Harris is owned everywhere, but I'm trying to get him as a throw-in on some of these Miles Sanders trades I'm trying to make right now. I'm trying to get like Miles Sanders plus a, you know, like a sell high Tyler Boyd plus something like that for a Jonathan Taylor plus a Damien Harris to see if I can make something like that work. So if you can get Damien Harris as a throw in like that or get him for on the cheap, I think that's totally fine. Anybody else here? I mean, Jeff Wilson, we probably should hit on the San Francisco guys. I'm not much of a believer in Jeff Wilson, but, you know, he did get, you know, we said it on the show. We said it on the pod. I mean, he gets touchdowns. They trust him down there. I'm not sure how interested I am, but I have not examined San Francisco's matchup for this week. Or wait, I guess they play Philly because I just talked about how Miles Sanders has.
Joe Mixon struggled in this matchup this last week, but 49ers have a better offensive line and a really good coach. I just think Kyle Shanahan is one of the very best coaches in the league. His offense is amazing. His teams are prepared. The way he calls plays, designs plays. I just think he's absolutely one of the brightest minds out there. So I like, especially in the run game, really the entire offense, but especially in the run game. So I think that Jeff Wilson stays on the list just based on the fact that if Mostert's still out, that it's never a horrible idea to be, you know, attached to Kyle Shanahan, even if it's in a more difficult, you know, matchup. And granted, the matchup on the matchup tool is not incredibly daunting against the Eagles. That was just, again, another pitiful, I think, performance by Mixon in the run game this last week and the Bengals in the run game this last week.
There are a lot of people.
Jeff Wilson can still be played, Alex, if you need. I'd probably play Jeff Wilson over Rex Burkhead. It'd be close, but I
Yeah,
think
of course you would.
I think I'd
Yes,
play Wilson over
yes.
Burkhead. Yeah.
Yes, of course you would. Let me see. I just look, man. People, Malcolm Brown. All right, Minion Hunter. I'm writing down all the names of people asking if they should drop people for others. We'll answer at the very end. This one, I just want to tell this guy. I think I want to tell him to run to accept this trade. He got offered Kenyan Drake for Darrell Henderson. Are we to the point to where we're not going to take that trade?
So okay. Yeah, I would take. Well, especially Drake's got Carolina this week. I mean, it's a great matchup.
You go. Yeah, I would go. I would go take that. I would go take that trade.
I just think there's less question marks about that situation, and it's a good offense. That said, the Darrell Henderson situation looking pretty nice right now.
He's gonna make me look like a fool for just believing that LA was just ready to give up on him. We'll see. I don't know if what he's doing is certainly not sustainable, and I don't know if they're going to be able to give him the same kind of the same kind of volume. It is fall, and at my bookie, that can only mean one thing. It's winning season. Winning season means doubling your first deposit. Winning season means free bets, super contest, survivor, and more. At my bookie, winning season is all about your chance to win big. Bet NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball, UFC, and then some. The craziest sports fall of your lifetime is here. It's simple. Make your picks, win big, collect your cash. Invest in your intuition. Select from hundreds of future bets, or you can bet games in real time with MyBookie's live betting. Put that big brain of yours to use. Use promo code ROSTER, ROSTER, and double your first deposit. New players get up to $1,000 in free play, designed to add more excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. Thousands of cross-sport wagers, props, and parlays await. Sign up now to bet with the best and celebrate your victory. Your winning season begins today only at MyBookie, but you have to use promo code ROSTER. New customers receive a 100% deposit match, so that's double your first deposit up to $1,000. So if you put in $100, you get an extra $100 to play with, but you have to use promo code ROSTER at mybookie.ag. All right, Byron. Let's move on here to the wide receivers. We talked about Justin Jefferson already because he kind of is the headliner here for the entire week, right? But there are other guys, man, and some of the guys that people are asking about in chat are some of these types of players that we've been that are here on the sheet. People are asking, should they drop Laviska Shenault to pick up T. Higgins? Like I personally think I think both of those guys are guys that should be owned right now. But after what T. Higgins did, after what Brandon Ayuk did this weekend, how did you sort of come to terms with this tier right here with guys like Ayuk, Higgins, et cetera?
I mean, I think they're all really good young players in good spots, and they're getting action early. So I don't think this is the whole group of players you don't have to spend as much up on as Justin Jefferson, but could easily turn out to be, comparable value to him, as the season progresses. So I love the second. Look, we tell you every week, it's not a mandate to go after the top guys on the sheet every week. I mean, they're the high priority, high price guys out there every week, but more often than not, you're better suited to go after some of the lower price guys on here, and you'll come out, much better like that over the season. You'll save budget, and you'll be able to kind of cultivate more of these players. And I think that this second tier is very representative of that, Alex. There was one non-rookie that kind of like which one's not like the others in that list, Alex, that they're in that second tier.
Is it the Golden Son, Anthony Miller?
Well, you could make that argument, but there's another one in there that's not like the others. So I've kind of
let's see. Oh yeah, I see that one. I'm not sure how much I buy into that one. Like, let's just talk about it. Scotty Miller. Are you gonna? Brady seems to like him, and Godwin could miss some time. If that's the case, Scotty Miller probably should definitely be picked up. I'm not sure what kind of budget allocation I would put towards a little player like that, but yeah, man, he should be like, do you know what else?
Brady likes him. He liked him in camp when I was there. I think if Godwin's gone for a couple weeks, I mean, I think Scotty Miller is going to get a lot of action.
Do you know who I think who else doesn't fit in that kind of fits in a little bit with the Scotty Millers of the world, who I think should be in that same tier, believe it or
Hunter
not.
Renfrow is going to go big in the Cooper Cup role this week against the Bills.
Well, no, it's another guy in that same game, and in that same class of player, a real
Cole
lunch
Beasley.
pail guy. Yeah, lunch pail guy, coach on the field.
You're not worried about Gabriel Davis?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess Gabriel. Yeah, I should have thought about Gabriel. How did Gabriel Davis' snap counts look?
I think the snap counts are respectable. It was Beasley who had the yardage.
Gabriel Davis, 74% of snaps. I mean, 81 yards on 4 targets. Cole Beasley leads the team in targets though, and dude, Josh Allen's Bills are on fucking fire. If John Brown's hurt, I think Beasley's a good pickup. He's a good pickup. I feel like a trash man, but
he's pretty high on the list. And I mean, the thing is that Beasley was on the list frequently last year, and the thing with him is, like any of these guys, I mean, you start to chase their points, and a lot of times it doesn't really work out. So you kind of keep that in mind. But I think as a 1 week play, Beasley is totally fine. And to your point, if we find out that Godwin's going to be back this week or something like, or next week, if we hear that, then I think it probably moves Scotty Miller down a little bit. But like he's a bona fide piece of that offense. I was at Bucks training camp. Brady loved him at training camp. And I just say no Godwin. If you need a play, I think it's a comfortable play. I'm not worried about it. Like Brady looks for him, right? I mean, so, maybe it's a little word of caution from you on a guy like Scotty Miller. You can be a little bit more careful, but I think if you need a win now, he's a guy that you'll have to really look at.
Our buddy Wes, man, he's sending me all these text messages about his cockamamie prop bets for the presidential debates tonight. Listen to this one, Byron. I can't believe that this is even a bet. Will Trump mention Joe Rogan? What do you think the odds on that are? Yes. What do you think the odds for yes are?
Like plus 400.
Yeah. All right. Well, no, it's at plus 500. I would put those odds at plus 1,600. He's not going to mention Rogan. He's never going to mention Rogan. What a sucker bet that is. The no is minus 1,000. I'd bet that one all day long. Okay. Let's see. Any of these other wideouts that you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I think Renfrow is an important guy this week. Looks like the Raiders are totally banged up at the wide receiver position. Renfrow had a big week this last week, but it's the same matchup Cooper Kupp got and just went bananas here against Buffalo. So I think it's a sneaky one to look out for. You mentioned Anthony Miller earlier. I thought the trash man had it right that, losing Tariq Cohen is probably a boon for Anthony Miller, a guy who I think we should project.
Oh, that's a good point. I forgot Trash Man wrote that.
Along with just the Nick Foles, like that's the game changer. And I mean, you got to remember the Bears were 2-0 going into this. Like nobody knew Nick Foles was about to come in. I mean, the Bears were undefeated. So getting this is like an early gift if you're invested in this Bears situation at all. So I think Miller is a direct beneficiary. And then kind of the corollary to that, Alex, I think a more creative idea is that further down the list, the loss of Tariq Cohen could really create some opportunity for Cordero Patterson. And
or for the Mooney kid. I think that they like him too. Ronald Martinez is like, look, Brian Hill's definitely on the cheat sheet for sure. And as a Gurley owner, I'm thinking about using a little bit of priority or fab money this week to go and get Brian Hill, because there were a couple plays that Brian Hill made where I was like, oh, they're going to look back on film at that and they're going to say
he needs more touches.
Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe Gurley wouldn't have made that play, So yeah. And look, Ronald Martinez, he keeps on asking about, like, what about Greg Ward? What about Brian Hill? Like, we're not touching on every single guy. You have a pro membership over at RosterWatch, so you can go check out the sheet and see where we have everyone listed over there.
And the reason we can't mention every player, Alex, is because we go deeper than any other organization in the industry. That every single week we have over 75 waiver wire pickups on our waiver wire cheat sheet. So this is it's a enormous list, and it's gives people, even in the most competitive situations, a lot of options.
And if you want to be one of the most competitive owners in your fantasy league, one of the smartest things you can do is download the Fantasy Life app. Guys, I'm being serious. I have it right here on my phone. It's free. We use them for the news alerts and for the community. The Fantasy Life app sends breaking news alerts faster than anybody else. They monitor thousands of reporters, so you don't have to, and they send important news as it breaks. You never miss a relevant injury, trade, or other update. The Fantasy Life app also has in-depth reports and on-demand advice from a massive community. Download the Fantasy Life app for iOS or Android at fantasylifeapp.com. I shit you not. I was hesitant to download the Fantasy Life app. I can't believe how awesome the Fantasy Life app is. With just the news alerts. I literally, man, like for me, it's great for my job. It's great for my work that I can, that I'm alerted. But like whatever kids they have monitoring the Twitters for this stuff, man, they are fast because they get it fast. So download the Fantasy Life app and help us out there. All right, Byron. Tight end, quarterback, anything you want to say? As you can see, the sun's starting to come down here in Austin on the back of my backdrop. Anything you want to say about tight end and quarterback? We usually kind of breeze through these before we get into the guys that we should or should not be dropping.
I mean, Dalton Schultz really emerging as a solid option. I think he's an important tight end pickup if you're still in the market there. Finally saw a little life out of Gronk, and I think the most important thing was that he was like a 90%. His snap counts were astronomical. Don't quote me on the number, but they far exceeded O.J. Howard. Will it stay like that week to week? I don't know, but I still think in the end that the connection between Brady and Gronk, especially with Godwin out, can be at least a relevant one in our fantasy leagues. Logan Thomas, the production hadn't really been there so much, but the targets have, and it's not been like you've been getting goose egg by him, so you got to expect there'll be a breakout at some point. I think he stays viable and relevant. I mean, Jimmy Graham, it's like a blast from the past. Who the hell knows how long this can continue? But
I hate to say it, but he actually looks a little bit good.
And he looks like he's a part of the game plan. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
his 9 targets this week.
He doesn't look as stiff as he did when he was in Green Bay. I don't know what it is. He looks a little like.
I think it's the dark uniform.
Maybe it could. I have no idea what it is. He looks like he took some yoga.
Eric Ebron has been on the uptick on a weekly basis. He's beginning to come into focus more as maybe the fringe tight end, one streamer option that we were kind of hoping preseason pre-draft. And then a couple of trash men. I mean, Mo Alley Cox starting to really kind of bite into that thing with Jack Doyle and just looks like the bigger, sicker beast, especially in the red zone. And then Robert Tonyan in Green Bay. I mean, this is ultra trashy, but we'll see if it can continue. But the way Aaron Rodgers is playing, it looked like he's picking up some targets this last week.
We've owned Tonyan since last year in our SiriusXM IDP Dynasty League, man. So at least we have that thing looking up for us after all this Darius guy's nonsense. All right, quarterbacks, whatever, man. You guys can go look at it. Look at the cheat sheet. Quarterbacks suck this week, so hopefully you picked up a couple. And if not, you can always come ask us questions in the comment section if you're a pro member over at RosterWatch. All right. Can you drop these players, Byron? Can you drop them for any of the hot waiver pickups? A specific question: should he drop Laviska Shenault for T. Higgins?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either. At this point, can we drop Henry Ruggs?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not going to, but I think he can. I'm not going to. I don't think we give.
I would drop him for any of these second-tier young rookie wide receivers we talked about today, Alex.
Okay. Dallas Goedert, fractured ankle.
I think you can drop him. I mean, the fact is he's
if you don't have an IR slot. If you don't have an IR slot, if you have an IR slot, of course, put him on IR. But yeah, it's going to be hard. I have to drop him in a keeper league in a year that they're going to get rid of Zach Ertz next year. I might hold on to him. Paris Campbell, same thing. Can you hold on? It looks like that's going to be surgery now. Now they're saying it doesn't look like it's going to end this season, but the whole like lot of goalposts moving in the year of our Lord 2020. This goalpost keeps fucking moving with Paris Campbell, because at first they said it's just a 3-week IR, just an MCL sprain, blah blah. Now they're saying that we don't think he's going to miss the season after his surgery. It's like, what?
Injury.
Since when do we start talking about surgeries and season ending? Like now, like it's goalposts, man, getting moved. So I think we can drop him. What about Curtis Samuel?
Oh, he can be dropped for sure. Curtis Samuel, I was thinking to myself earlier, he would benefit so much to be traded to another team. If I was another team out there, now I don't suspect they'll do it given what's happened with McCaffrey, but I sure would be sniffing around on Curtis Samuel if I was another team that needed a little help on offense in the league. And he is a good player and just not being utilized properly.
Okay, how about Tony Pollard?
Drop at your own risk if you're a Zeke owner. I think if you're a Zeke owner, you have to hold him, or you should hold him. If you're anybody else, you should try to trade him to the Zeke owner before you drop him. But if you need to drop him tonight to make a waiver claim, I think you can do it if it's an important claim.
We've gotten this one a bunch, man. We've gotten this one a bunch, but Josh Kelly. There's no fucking way.
I wouldn't drop him. Like, he has a bona fide role, right? Austin Eckler looks awesome. I feel so good about. We got pretty bullish on Austin Eckler this offseason, Alex, and I'm feeling pretty darn good about that one right now.
Looked really, really bad. If this thing goes back to Tyrod, it's going to be bad. I wouldn't mind if I would. Tyrod. If Herbert gets hurt, that guy's running around a lot. If he goes back to Tyrod, he goes back to being fucked. Speaking of that, what about Mike Williams?
Fucked, dropped, too injured for too many years, injured all the time, man. It's a disappointment. I hate to quit him. I still think he's got the talent to be a guy at some point, but dude, he's always hurt. He's always hurt. Somebody's
saying that should they drop Darius Slayton for Justin Jefferson? And before you answer that, like, I would say, I hate when I get these questions and I press people farther and I say, do you have a backup quarterback or a backup tight end or a backup ancillary player at some kind of cockamamie kicker or defense? And they tell me, yeah, I have 3 quarterbacks. Or yeah, like I'm trying to hold on to Younghoe Koo until he comes back. So I'm just, but this happens in the comments at RosterWatch all the time, and I'm just like, don't come to me asking me if you should drop good players at positions like running back or wide receiver whenever you're holding on to a backup quarterback or a backup tight end. So whoever asks this question, you can let us know if that's the case, and you will be scorned here on the live stream in front of all these people if it is. But just saying it's not. Is Slayton a guy you would drop for? Do you covet Justin Jefferson that much?
It's a really close call. I'd probably look at the schedules. I'd look at the snap counts.
That's not a decision that you should be making. You should have another drop candidate besides Slayton, unless you're in a 10-team league, maybe, I guess. Right?
People are very, very concerned about Slayton at this point, Alex. If he's just like a total, kind of boom bust, unreliable, player. I guess the injury to Sterling Shepard makes me feel a little more comfortable that like Slayton is a guy that they need to get the ball to, but I don't think Shepard's out indefinitely, and there's still other guys. I think Golden Tate's like an interesting low end wide receiver pickup this week. Like, to me, he's not maybe going to have a big ceiling, but he's probably going to be at least relevant as a low end flex here over the coming weeks. So I don't know. That's a tough one, Alex. I would certainly consider it.
Just a few more. There are 3 that I don't think you drop J.K. Dobbins right now. I'm not dropping him. Not doing it. He played 43% of snaps. He played the most snaps of any running back for the Ravens last night, right? We can't be dropping him.
Well, and he's the kind of player they need to beat teams like the Chiefs. Yeah. So you would think that they would start getting him more involved because they're going to need him in the playoff. They need the firepower with Dobbins.
You're not dropping Malcolm Brown yet, are you?
If I needed to, I would.
Malley
cat? If I was like a Cam Akers or some, I think I would drop him. I mean, what are you going to do with Malcolm Brown? He's not really a handcuff. I guess he's a flex. It depends on who you're dropping him for. I would drop him for Carlos Hyde, maybe, if I needed to play this week. I don't know. It's a close call.
I don't think I'd drop him for Hyde.
No, probably not. Maybe for Gaskin. Drop him for Gaskin, maybe.
What about Zack Moss?
I would try to trade him to the Singletary owner, but I wouldn't drop Zack Moss.
How
injured is Zack Moss right now?
I was looking for news on Zack Moss right before we came on because I've been interested in trying to trade for him. There's no new news this week, but the hope is he'll be back, and they get the number one matchup on the matchup tool for opposing runners this week, and so that's why I was kind of interested in sniffing around to see if the Zack Moss owner could maybe want to get rid of him. All right, I know you're going to get rid of Benny Snell right now, right?
He's another one that's a perfect. And this is clearly something we'll need to talk about on this week's episode of the Tradecast, Alex. All these guys, all the Pollards, the Edmonds, the Snells, the Hydes. If you don't own the principal running back in those situations, you need to this week take that backup that is dead weight on your roster and trade them to the owner of that principal back in your league. I think everybody has been scared enough at this point, if they've owed a Connor or Carson or whatnot, to probably be open to finding a way to make that happen.
At the beginning of the season, we like to handcuff other people's players. As the season begins to vest, we like to begin to handcuff our own players and start to cover our own ass. And that's just that's the way we like to play it. But it's also just the general way that a lot of fantasy owners think. They like to get things shored up as you get into the season, and who the actual handcuff is. And finally, Byron, the biggest question of all, I think the one that's on everybody's mind: Can we really think about dropping Bryce Love at this point?
I'm gonna have to sleep on it, Alex.
Yeah, I think that after you sleep on it, you'll probably wake up and say, yes, it's 100% okay to drop Bryce Love. All right, guys, that'll end it for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Find the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And if you guys could give us a thumbs up, subscribe here in YouTube, we'd appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for the support. We love you very much.